Hey, a lot of stuff going on these days. There's some ideas I'd like to pass along. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, not only on a national scale, but also individual scale with behavior, psychology, things like that. And when it comes to the human experience, if you wanted to really understand what's going on, well, the best perspective would be the largest perspective. Right. So, a large perspective on humanity, some might go back to the Greeks and the Romans and things like that, but actually the timeline goes back much further than that. And when it comes to humans on Earth, the oldest DNA, it used to be said that the oldest DNA was from Africa. Those scientists have done more research and they have changed their minds about that, but no one is listening to them anymore. No one is changing the textbooks. But the oldest DNA is not from Africa, it is from Australia. So the Australian Aborigines are Aboriginal people. They are basically Aboriginal. They are the original people. That's what I get for trying to spell and talk at the same time. Aboriginal. And like many indigenous people, they get sneered at, belittled, murdered. We colonize, we wipe them out, we insult them, we call them barbaric, savages, cannibals, all kinds of things like that. But the truth is that the Aborigines, and they, to a very small degree these days, all still possess a lot of these traits, but they were the happiest, healthiest people ever studied by anthropologists. Anthropologists. So you might ask yourself, well, why is that? Is that a fairy tale? Is that made up? Or is it actually the equivalent of living in the Garden of Eden? An Edenic existence. And yes, that's what it was. And the timeline goes back very, very far for the Aborigines. 200,000 years. So when you look at 200,000 years, I mean, I could draw one line, but let's make a few lines. Okay, well, the space that we occupy, what we consider to be civilization, is 6,000 years. It's nearly nothing. So essentially what happened in Australia close to 6,000 years ago was that some began leaving in boats, small ones which carried 20 to 30 people, and they began populating the rest of the world. What happened if they reached an ecosystem like perhaps Northern Europe? Well, they could not do the same. See, some call it hunter-gatherer, but it's actually gatherer-hunter because they did more gathering than hunting. They're a hunter lifestyle. They found that the climate was not suited for that. So when they couldn't do the hunter-gatherer lifestyle any longer, that is when the major switch occurred and they turned to farming and livestock. And you might say, well, I can't imagine Australian Aborigines being in Norway or something and doing this. Well, it doesn't take very long, very many generations for all the physical traits to change. So if you're in a more northern environment with less sun and things like that, the skin color changes. It doesn't take many generations, 6, 8, 10 generations, and basically you got a pretty different organism or a different appearance anyway. So when they turned to farming and livestock, that was basically the exit from Eden, because farming and livestock created ownership. This is my land, this is your land, these are my animals, those are your animals. Property, money and commerce, government, transportation, all those other things that we consider to be a normal, we take them for granted as being part of life, and they're not. Because essentially when it comes to the universe is one thing, and you're in it, you belong to it. A plant, tree belongs to the earth, it grows out of the earth. Everything is part of everything. Your body itself is part of the universe. The electrons, the atoms, the molecules, the force of gravity on it, sunlight, all these other things. Your body is part of the universe, but people live up here and they think that they're somehow different and they're separated. Well, they're not. The thing about the Aborigines is that when they did, well, let me back up, because the Aborigines had, they had ways of eliciting NDEs, which is the near-death experience. And when people have the near-death experience, they basically can go out of their bodies, they go to the light, they rejoin with the universe. The separation between their consciousness and the universe itself goes away, and they experience, not believe or anything else, they experience what they called the dreaming, or the dream time. And the dreaming is the underlying consciousness of the universe. Now, our science says that matter came first, consciousness is evolved from matter. It's like, no, you have to have a witness to have a reality. So there's an underlying consciousness which preceded the physical reality, and it always does. You have to have a witness to have reality. So anyway, the dreaming. So what do the Aborigines say when they, even today, when they look at us and the mess we're making in the world? They say, little brother, you're being nice about it. Little brother has lost the dreaming. So what happened? They had the direct connection to the universe. And what happened when people spread out to the east and the west from Eden is that in the east, it was decided that, through their spiritual practices, that God or the enlightenment or the light or whatever it was within. So to access that, you would do yoga, meditation, and things like that. Well, is it within? No, it's wrong. It's everywhere all the time. In the West, where is it? It's up there. God is in the sky or in the clouds or something, and you must pray and go through all these rituals and things like that. And that's saying God is out there. And it's like, is that true? No, it's false also. But these ideas happened because man broke away from the dreaming. Now, another interesting thing is that you may know that all the continents were once joined together into a continent called which we call Pangaea, which eventually broke apart and the continents began moving up into the northern hemisphere. Well, guess what? In the northern hemisphere, the magnetic fields are different from the southern hemisphere. Why should that matter? Well, it's important because the magnetic fields affect the magnetic fields of the brain, of the human brain. So in the Northern Hemisphere, the minds tend to be more rational, reductionist, scientific, which creates technology and pollutes and destroys the environment. In the Southern Hemisphere, the electromagnetic waves tend to not affect the brain that way, and so in the Southern Hemisphere, peoples are more holistic. They are more connected to the universe itself. So anyway, what happens when we are born into the culture of the last 6,000 years, which is all we've ever known, and we have this assumption that there's progress going on, that it's leading somewhere. We're all waiting, hoping it's going to pay off, and of course it's not going to, because all it's doing is leading away from the universe. More and more and more and more. Technology leading away from the universe. So in a sense, we think of it as, oh, technology's getting better, it's going up and up and up, and we're going to hit something. No, what's going to happen is it's going to crash, and it's going to come straight down, and then it may repeat again, as some have said that it has done with Atlantis and Lemuria and other cultures that took technology too far. But at any rate, us in the last 6,000 years, when the Greeks began to dissect everything, make everything scientific, mathematical, geometry, and so on, that was going into the mind and away from the universe. Which is not a good thing, but we look at it as being, it's all we've ever known, it's part of history and so on. But our culture, what it does is it trains us to see the universe this way, to see the world this way. And we miss basically everything. We're locked up in economies and entertainment and addictions and all kinds of technologies and all kinds of other things. We miss the whole picture. But what happens, and I discussed this a little bit in a recent video, is that when people are born, babies, they are being. They are in a state of bliss, happiness, unless they got hungry or have a dirty diaper. And we train them to behave according to the idiotic, well, not to be too insulting, behaviors of the culture. So we're indoctrinated. In a lot of ways, it's like a religion, or a cult. And what does our cult say? Cult culture? That you have to prove your value. You have to work hard and so on. Now ask yourself, the universe is gigantic. It goes on forever, almost. Stars, planets, everything. What else in the universe has to work hard? Do plants and animals and trees and everything on Earth have to work hard? No, it's our perspective. And I mentioned this the other day, that what we call survival. Oh, animals, it's survival of the fittest. They're surviving. No, they're living. We're the ones that are surviving in the system that we've created, that has been created. Now, whether or not this is supposed to happen this way, or whether or not it is happening in cycles where civilizations rise, fall, crash, and burn, you see, you could say, well, is the rising a good thing? Is the rising even supposed to happen? Well, with the Aborigines again, there was no rising. It was all steady state. And I put it above where we are because it was above where we are. Aboriginal customs, everything they did worked. Because if it hadn't, they wouldn't be around for 200,000 years. Everything that we do, our customs, none of them work. None of them work. And we start young, we judge children, we make love conditional. And we train them to be slaves. Now, when it comes to this Edenic Aboriginal existence, this life, there are a lot of customs. I could go into a lot of them, but I'll just maybe pick one or two. One is when someone died, their name was never spoken again. And you might think, oh, that's a horrible thing. It's not a horrible thing. It's a very sensible thing, because you do not want people who are gone to be influencing your life today while you are here. Us, on the other hand, we are drowning in Abe Lincoln, George Washington, celebrities, rock stars, crosses by the side of the road where someone crashed, on and on and on and on. And there might be some idea that it's like, oh, this is good. We need to remember, we need to honor these people and their contributions and things like that. It's like every moment that you spend doing that is time that you are not here. You're creating a collection of the past, which doesn't do anything for the most part. Sometimes there's someone whose wisdom is actually useful, and that could be passed down through time, and that might actually be good. Well, the Aborigines have been called, illiterate and ignorant and things like that. Well, they have songs, and the songs contain so much information, it would fill 2 20-volume sets of the Oxford Dictionary. And not only does it have to do with the earth and life and everything on it, but also with the universe itself, with knowledge of other star systems, things like that. Believe it or not, that is true. So compare them to us, Australian Aborigines, to us. What do? We test people, we judge them. Well, the Aborigines, if there was a rule where the husband was not allowed to speak to or talk to the mother-in-law. And that might sound a little weird, but it makes good sense, because the man is marrying the woman, not the woman and the mother. And if it turns into a triangle of things going back and forth, it's not a marriage, and it turns into chaos. So they knew that that was not a good idea. So anyway, if the man was hunting and brought home a kangaroo or something, guess who got the first choice of the meat? The mother-in-law that he was not supposed to speak to or look at. And guess who got the last choice of meat? The hunter did. So the hunter could not hot dog, grandstand, show off, look at me, look what I did, and that basically did not allow the ego to get ever in the way, because it's nothing but a problem. And us, what do? The total opposite. Grandstand, glorify yourself, be a rock star, be an actor, be an athlete, be all these things, show off, be a politician, get people to look at you all the time, things like that. So, anyway, considering their lifestyle and where we've come, where basically we are destroying the earth, We have no respect for life itself. We're disconnected from the universe. We're sick in the mind. We're sick in the body. Things are not working. What do? Do we try to go back to this? What do we do? Well, I did a story some years ago where there were a Star Trek type people. They were sick of being on the ship, so they landed on this planet to take a vacation. And on the planet, there were Aboriginal type people living there. And they never had such a good time. They took off all their clothes, they ate what was right there, they went swimming in the ocean. It was wonderful. They did not want to leave, but eventually they did. They flew away from the planet on their ship, very unhappy and sad that they had to leave this Garden of Eden. And what happened, it was when they were leaving, they saw that there was an asteroid headed for the planet. It's too late for them to do anything. They couldn't stop it. It was going to hit the planet. Well, what happened? The planet shot out a beam and deflected the asteroid. And the people on the ship realized that the people that they considered to be primitive had technology far surpassing their own, but they only used it when necessary. Yeah. So that's my fable about all that. Don't know if anyone got it. But what happens with us is the more we use technology, here's the wheel on the car, right? The more you use the wheel, the weaker your leg becomes. The more you use the computer screen, the weaker your brain becomes, the weaker your mind becomes, and so on and so on. So everything with technology that we do weakens us. If you went to Australia and into the outback, you might live for one day. You couldn't handle it because there's no air conditioning. Well, Aborigines could live there their whole lives and walk and run easily 100 miles a day, never feel tired. Directly connected to the universe, directly connected to the dream time, the dreaming, the underlying consciousness of the universe, and everything else. When I learned all this stuff, it blew my mind because everything they did worked, everything we do does not work. Because the path that we're on with technology, the way it's weakening us, how is that going to wind up? How is that going to play out? We're going to wind up looking like that, which a lot of people, and I don't know this myself for a fact, but a lot of people are saying that gray aliens are a future form of human beings after the DNA was tampered with. And that why they're coming back in time to the present is to harvest the DNA from before it was corrupted for money, which is what we're doing. So anyway, I could go into money being the root of all evil, which it is, but I won't today. And this has been a long one. This is 23 minutes and 23 seconds. So I'll end it there. Bye.